Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6:30, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Alpharetta City Council, meeting and public hearing, February 26, 2024. I'll note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for, except for Councilman Dorito, who will not be able to join us this evening. And as always, we begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item will be the proclamation for the Arbor Day of 2024. So if Terry Porter and David Shostak will meet me down front. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to say a few words?
Either before or after you read the proclamation, whatever you think is best.
I typically read the proclamation after the conversation, but
Okay.
you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I got some words here.
Words on a page.
Yep, exactly. So thank you, Mayor Gilvin and Council, and thank you for recognizing Arbor Day and for supporting the city's tree ordinances. I would also like to thank the city's Natural Resource Commission for all the hard work they do in supporting the city's tree and environmental programs. As you will hear in the proclamation, there are many benefits of trees and a healthy tree canopy. Some of these benefits are: trees intercept and soak up rainwater to help mitigate stormwater runoff. Trees help to reduce energy costs by shading homes and blocking winter winds. Trees increase property values, and simply, trees are cool. These are all the benefits of trees, and they really do extend beyond property lines and are felt across the city. This year, the city will be celebrating its 34th year being recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation. To be a tree city, there are 4 standards every city must meet each year. Those standards are maintaining a tree board or department, having a community tree ordinance, a community forestry program with an annual budget of at least $2 per capita, and celebrating Arbor Day. Due to the support of the Mayor and Council, we have no problems meeting any of these standards. In fact, because of our Tree City USA designation, we get points for some of our other recognitions, such as being recertified as a green community at the gold level from the Atlanta Regional Commission. This year's Arbor Day celebration will be held right outside City Hall at Brook Street Park on March 9th at 10:30 a.m. It will be great to see everyone there to celebrate Arbor Day. During the workshop, I didn't say what the workshop was. During the workshop, I will be demonstrating and explaining how to properly prune trees, show off some pruning equipment, and explain the reason why you may want to prune your trees. I will also have some information about caring for our trees as a handout, and I look forward to seeing everyone there.
Would anyone else like to say a few words? It's our honor. That being said, then, I'll read the proclamation by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia for Arbor Day 2024. Whereas the first Arbor Day was celebrated in 1872 in Nebraska as a special day for planting trees and has grown to thousands of celebrations in communities across our nation each year. And whereas community partners, families, and friends will be joined together at local Arbor Day ceremonies to recognize the benefits of trees in urban forests. And whereas trees will be planted across the United States, creating a lasting legacy for future generations and where planted, may that area be a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas trees improve water quality, reduce the erosion of precious topsoil, increase property values and economic vitality in business areas, provide shade, cleanse the air, create habitat for wildlife, and add beauty to communities. And whereas trees promote outdoor recreation, which improves human health and well-being, and reduces nature deficit disorder in children by encouraging more activity and connections to the natural world. And whereas all of Alpharetta benefits from trees and urban forestry, which contributes to the local economy and enjoyment of the outdoors. Now therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, do hereby proclaim March 9th, 2024 as Arbor Day in the City of Alpharetta, and urge all citizens to plant trees to promote the well-being of present and future generations, and thus support our city's beautification and forestry program for years to come. So proclaimed this 26th day of February 2024 by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia. Look that way. Picture of this handsome group.
It was like American Idol.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item up on our agenda this evening will be the public hearing. Public hearing item PH-24-02, the Garin, 154 Kimblebridge Road, change of conditions, is the first item, and Mr. Woodman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The public hearing item before you this evening is a request from the Garin. They're requesting changes to previous conditions of zoning to allow the former gymnasium building on the property to be demolished and rebuilt with a similar footprint and massing, and to allow for a two-phase construction process. The applicant has provided in their application that the gymnasium has fallen into disrepair due to some flawed construction and an extended period of deterioration. I do have the location map on the overhead. The property is located at 154 Kimblebridge Road. It's the east side of Kimblebridge Road and south of Kimball Place. This property was rezoned, approved for a rezoning back in 2021. And that development was to allow for the construction of a 3-story, 120,000 square foot timber frame office building on the north portion of the property, and then the adaptive reuse of the Bailey Johnson School and Gymnasium building. The applicant is now requesting changes to 3 of the previous conditions of zoning. First, they need to change the condition related to the site plan specific condition from the file number PH-2205, Kimblebridge 154, change of condition and variance, and then also changes to conditions dealing with the original 2021 rezoning to change the architecture and materials in order to reference the new gymnasium renderings, and then also to remove the gymnasium building from the condition requiring that the building be designated historic. This is the applicant's site plan, and as I mentioned earlier, they're showing now a 2-phase approach to construction. Previously, you saw a site plan similar to this, which is the phase 2 of development. That would, the original approval on the property was to reuse the gymnasium building and the school buildings and then to build the 3-story timber frame office building on the north portion of the property with the parking deck behind. The applicant is now proposing a 2-phase approach where they would tear down and rebuild the gymnasium building shown here. They would rehabilitate the existing Bailey Johnson School building, which is the 1-story building on the south side of the property, and then they would build a surface parking lot on the northern portion of the property. In phase 2 of the development, that surface parking lot would come out and they would construct the 3-story office building with parking deck on the northern portion of the property. The applicant provided some renderings of the replacement gymnasium building, and that's what you see here looking at the building from Kimblebridge Road. So this is the proposed replacement building. And this is a view, as I mentioned, from Kimblebridge Road. This is a view kind of at that entrance. So this view would be looking into the entrance to the building this way. And that's what you see here. So the portions of the building that would be visible from Kimblebridge Road, they're trying to maintain the current look of the building. On the portions that would be only visible from the interior of the building, they are showing some more modern aesthetic being added to the building, and that's what you see here. So this is not visible from Kimblebridge Road. This is at the back of the building. This would be visible from the interior of the site. We did send, even though this is not in the downtown, we did reach out to the city's downtown consultant, who's an expert in historic architecture, and he believes that the applicant's approach to maintain the historic character of the building, where visible from Kimblebridge Road, was a good approach on the new building. Of course, looking at the request, we did think that the applicant's request to phase the development was understandable given the current state of the office market. The applicant also worked with representatives of the Historical Society, the Alpharetta Old Milton County Historical Society, as well as the Bailey Johnson School Alumni Association. And according to the applicant in their citizen participation report, they have garnered support from both of those groups. We did show this request to the public at the February 14th Community Zoning Information Meeting, and there were no public comments on the application. And staff is recommending approval, subject to the conditions as shown in the staff report. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Woodman? Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Michael. How did we verify that the existing building is in disrepair? Because I hear that a lot with historic structures.
So the applicant did come in and had an initial meeting, and we had some additional meetings with them. And the applicant did provide some information in those meetings that we were comfortable with. I mean, there's always been a discussion about the gymnasium building, the fact that it is sliding down the hill that it's on, so there's some foundation issues. But some of the additional issues with regard to the building and it not being feasible for them to keep it, I'd really like the applicant to respond to those because they have some more details that I'm just not really versed on. But it sounded like there's some issues with supporting of the existing walls of the gymnasium building, but they do have those details for you.
Okay. And also, I know that back when I was liaison to Public Works, there was an issue with the front corner of the building being too close to Kimblebridge. Has there been any effort to turn the angle of that so that you can fit a sidewalk in now?
Because the applicant was trying to replicate the existing building footprint of the gym and kind of keep that same orientation that the gym has today, we did not press the applicant to push the building back further. I believe as it was approved with the 2021 rezoning of the property, I think that corner of the gymnasium building was about within 5 feet of the proposed, I think it's an 8-foot sidewalk that's being shown along the street frontage. So we did not push them to ask the applicant to push the building back, but certainly the applicant's here this evening and may be able to consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Woodman? Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hi, good evening. Do you want me to go ahead and just address your question? Yeah, I can.
And before you begin, if you don't mind, just state your name
Oh,
and
I'm
address for
sorry.
the record.
I'm sorry. I'm Danielle Katz. I'm with ASD Sky. We're the architecture design firm that is working on this project. Maybe I'll have you ask it again, just so I'm clear on exactly what it was.
Okay, I'd like to know about the verification of the materials being in disrepair to the point at which you have to reconstruct the building
Sure.
as a historic structure.
Yeah, so there's there are a few issues. As Michael said, there are a few foundational issues. There's also some issues where the building is not laterally supported, so it's moving like left to right, if you will. It's only braced by those exterior walls, and so in our previous design, we were looking to sort of reinstate the rhythm of the windows and also to provide more light for an office environment. Whereas previously, you know, there was no windows up to what is now the second story because it was a gymnasium, and you would have had bleachers on those two longer sides of the building. So in sort of playing with that line of how many openings we could cut into the building's main lateral support system, we would have had to add additional or new lateral bracing to bring the building up to code. And a lot of these are remediations that would be required to bring the building up to today's building codes. So we would have had to add 2 pieces of cross bracing, both on the north and the south side, both long sides of the building. On that north side, it would be from the basement level all the way to the roof, and then on the south side from the level 1, the old gymnasium level up to the roof. And we would be digging down below the building's existing foundations to put in new foundations for that. That's a very costly item. And then also the second story that was added to the building was designed for a classroom load. The load design factor for classroom is lower than the design load for office function. And so we would need to, again, remediate the trusses that are holding up that second level right now. And then there is some severe water damage in the northwest corner of the building where there's a hole in the roof. And it has since sort of seeped down to the second floor. So when you're standing in that kind of quadrant of the building, it's a little scary. The floor is a bit mushy. So those are high level.
And do you have a photo of the existing building as it is today?
I don't know if they're in here. I do not have those, but we could follow up with those. Thank you. You're welcome.
Councilman Mitchell, did you want to follow up about the sidewalk?
Oh,
I appreciate that. I guess that would be more of a question for Pete, if he's okay with that, given the road. Mr. Sasevich, could you come to the front? I was just thinking if it could be repositioned, if it still needs to be repositioned, now would be a time to do that
Sure.
before you construct.
Sure.
Pete, do you still,
I think there's 2 choke points on this property though. I think the other side, more to the east is a choke point as well.
It is.
the corner that's nearest the glass place?
Correct, yes,
Okay, so by fixing this one, you would still have that present?
correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Quite welcome. Any other questions for the applicant? Do you have a presentation that you'd like to give us?
We could look through, yeah.
Feel free.
How do I switch it? I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. So I'll just show, this is the second pinch point here that you were talking about. The existing school building, encroaches on that landscape buffer. The dotted line is that representative, and you can see it going through this southernmost building. Sorry, I don't know if I. Yeah. I don't know if I touched something by accident.
Oh,
That's fine, there you go.
Well, I'm not going to try to zoom in anymore. But you can, once it, okay. Okay. There we go. But then you can see the corner of the new building, as was the old, is encroaching on that as well, currently. I can keep going through this as much as you guys want me to, so. Do you want me to continue?
I would suggest if you've got things you want us to consider, go ahead and state all of those.
Sure. This is our fully proposed site plan. This is inclusive of Phase 1 and Phase 2. So you can see that sidewalk along Kimball Bridge is maintained, even though these are encroaching, and we would need the variance for them. We've done a lot of work with David Shostak and the city to identify a pretty robust landscape strategy where there's sort of like a more natural plantings that stand the test of the year. There's different landscape plantings that are in season every season. So this is the sort of look that we will achieve. Inclusive in this presentation is photos of all the different planting species that we're intending to use across the property. And then these are the renderings that Michael had showed everyone just before. So from Kimball Bridge Road, you really are maintaining the look and feel of the existing building and this historic nod back to the architecture of the original school building with the brick detailing, this sort of simulated divided light of the windows is mimicking the same proportion of those in the classrooms at the school building. And this is the side from that drive aisle. And so we're really not interrupting the idea of this brick volume until you're on the interior of the property. And then these are the elevations, and these are really the two that you're going to see most from Kimblebridge Road, largely brick. And then you will see this lower northwest elevation from Kimblebridge Road as well. And there are some kind of fun nods back to the existing gym building, play with the texture of the brick that is on the building now. It's just sort of like a really fun feature that you don't get to see every day, and we wanted to work to maintain some of those. And then as far as materials, it is largely, standard brick and storefront. The top two images are a metal panel, which is that additional volume that we saw in the renderings, and then this idea of something that is a little bit more playful as it opens out onto the interior outdoor amenity space between this new building and the existing school building. That's all I have.
Councilman Hypes.
Thank you for the presentation. There had been some discussion, prior to about the choke points along Kimblebridge. And when this was originally approved, we believed we were saving the gymnasium as a historic structure, but if it is determined that it's coming down, for starters, is the applicant open to designing new construction such that it sets back on the same line as the newer construction that's to the north or west?
Sure. I definitely think that that's something that we could work with Michael and Kathy on if that is what is being asked of us. There are a few, nuances that are creating that choke point, right? I think one is really the idea of maintaining the footprint as best we can. And the second is sort of just its position relative not only to the existing cafetorium space that's at sort of the north end of the school buildings, but also plans for phase 2 and how far that is from that building and creating the drive aisle and circulation through the site.
I think I got a takeaway from that, but I want to be clear.
Sure.
Y'all are willing to work with staff to bring that setback equivalent to what the new construction that's further either north or west will be in phase 2?
Yes.
Okay. That brings us to the second choke point, which is shown as Building 1C. And I've pulled it up, and I believe it's been pulled up on our monitors. That section that sticks out, where that's, if you were to take it back to where the existing, the setback would be for the new construction in phase 2 and where the gymnasium may be, it looks like it's a little bit of a storage shed, and I'm not quite sure what's in that part of the facility that juts out there. Are you all open, if it was decided that's a good route to go, to move that part back, or is that encroaching too much on your plans? Because one doesn't solve the other,
Sure.
but both actually solve something, and the gymnasium was, quite the historic item. I know this is older, I just don't know the historic significance versus the utility of the wider road right there.
Sure. I will say that it's my understanding that that is part of the original school building. And it's not a shed right now. I know it has that funky little awning on there. But it is classroom, it was classroom space, as I understand it. And I think we would like to keep it. We would ask that is, sort of grandfathered in, I suppose, as part of the existing structure. But with that said, I think that that's likely something that we could also work towards. Sorry, I'm trying to think through that a little bit. There is maybe a way to do that. It's a little.
If I could just pause you, I think you've got some help coming.
And I want to interject as you're preparing to say something, that if James can pull back that way, it's pretty clear that that's a different color brick that might have been added on at a later date versus the original construction. Because, I mean, it's clear as day in the pictures when you look at it at an angle.
Yeah,
But,
my understanding, I'm Bruce Fernald, one of the development team on the project. My understanding is that that wing was added in the early 50s to house high school classrooms. And is that correct? 1953. So the original school was just the lateral piece. Are we, okay. Relative to trimming back, what I would like to just suggest in the simplest terms possible is every square foot of leasable area in this project is essential. The financial environment that we're in relative to developing office space post-COVID, when there's no real trend or support that most equity investors and lenders get their bearings from. It's just a very difficult environment. We fortunately have very deep-pocketed equity partners, but they do have underwriting standards that are being addressed through the full phase one square footage in the existing school and the new gym. So that is
and I don't know the amount of square footage there, and you all have got your pro formas and all your due diligence. When opportunity presents itself, I don't know if it's something that's doable, or from your perspective that just blows the whole thing up.
Well, and I would just reiterate and underscore Danielle's comment. Of course, we'll look, we'll examine it, and we will do so in good faith with Kathy and Michael and their team. And I think my recommendation is that you leave it to us to work in good faith as we have for years and come to the right conclusion.
Okay. Can't ask for more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker this evening is Ms. Pat Miller. If you'd like to come forward.
My name is Pat Miller. I live at 13040 King Road, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Alpharetta and Old Milton County Historical Society. I want to give two shout-outs. One is to, I think, Kathy Cook. It could be Kim Manning, but one or the other of them gave Bruce Fernald my phone number and told him he ought to call me. And when he did, he immediately told me that he was a New Englander. And he said, "What is your Southern fascination with the Civil War?" Well, an hour later, he knew all about Jim Crow, and he knew the special importance that the Bailey Johnson building plays in the story of segregation in North Fulton County. the next time I heard from him, I knew he had really gotten it because he had sent his folks back to the drawing board and they redesigned it to reflect the history of the school. And since that time, they have worked with the Historical Society every step along the way. We introduced them to Bailey Johnson alumni, and they've worked with the Alumni Association. And I think the resulting product is going to be something really unique. He will have a better story to tell than he did when he started out just rehabbing an old school, and Alpharetta will have something it can be really proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if there is anyone else here that would like to come forward, please do so. And don't forget to state your name and your address for the public record.
Michael Buchanan, 135 Pebble Trail, here in Alpharetta. Anyway, I just had a couple of things in listening. I kind of missed the last meeting, so I may have missed some things. One question I did have is whose structure? Where did the structural engineering come from that said this was deemed unsavable? So that's a question. I don't know if that's out there somewhere, if it was from the people that want to redesign it, or if the city has their own structural engineer. That's just something I don't know, that they can figure out these things. The other thing, I wanted to make everybody aware that there's the cornerstone from the original building was found or recovered from somebody's backyard about a year ago that lived in ball ground. And they called me and they said, "Do you want this thing?" And I said, "Yes." So everybody needs to know that the cornerstone from the original building exists, and I think the Historical Society has it. And so it's kind of cool for that to be incorporated into the new structure. And I coached high school basketball for about 20 years. And the thing that means the most is when you walk on the court, right? The rest of it is that's cool and all that. But if there was a way that we could save part of the court and incorporate that into the new building, whether if you walk in the lobby and when you walk in, you go, you're walking on the old court that people played basketball on here in the 1950s. I don't know if that's a possibility for the design team, but that's something I would like to pitch out there. Because once the court's gone and all that stuff is, kind of tossed, then you never get it back. And I think for the people that played on that court, to be able to walk in there and to step on it again, even if it's a small piece of it in some way, I think would be very meaningful. And it would enhance our efforts to say we are preserving this the best we can. Cool.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion this evening to approve PH-24-02, the Garan 154 Kimball Bridge Road change of conditions is presented this evening.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Brady. Any discussion? Councilman Hypes?
This matter initially came before council. Part of the latitude given for the project is we were saving something that was historic and still are. And of course, the gymnasium was of great importance. And, I can't sit here and second guess people who say a structure is structurally sound or not sound. I take the information as presented. I can say for myself, if this was not a historic structure to begin with, I probably would not have approved rehabilitating or building exactly where it was because of these pinch points on Kimball Bridge Road. We didn't, at the time of the vote, if we wanted to preserve the historic structure, have an opportunity to create that setback consistent with what Phase 2 will be, but we do now. And if the applicant is willing to work with staff to consider ways to make the gymnasium as rebuilt on a setback line where Phase 2's setback line will be, and in good faith explore the ability on building 1C to bring it back to that setback line. I think everybody's a winner in that case. I think we can widen the sidewalks, which makes a greater experience for those who are going to be working in that environment, and it just for the surrounding neighborhoods and for the connection down to North Winds. So those are my comments, and having voiced those comments, I would like to make a friendly amendment to the approval of the application that it include that the applicant will work in good faith to reconstruct the gymnasium and work on building 1C so it falls back to that setback equivalent to Phase 2 and work with Community Development Department. As worded, there's nothing binding on the applicant, but you've been a good man of your word. I've enjoyed working with you on this project and our meetings on this, and I take you at your word when you say that. You've been very sincere about this project. So I'd like to offer that as a friendly amendment.
Do you accept that friendly amendment?
Considering there's nothing binding by it, I'll accept it.
Councilman Brady? Okay. So are we all clear on the friendly amendment version? Okay. Any discussion?
I'd like to, I have some pause about, for one, I don't like the idea of having to tear down the existing gym. But if it's a must, it's a must. But I really don't like the idea of moving another part of the historic structure. And especially if there's not a real need right now, because I believe that Kimball Bridge Road is already, the bridge, Pete, if you could answer that before we get too far down this rabbit trail, the bridge is already planned for the width that we have. Is that correct? I'm just saying, I don't know that we can go back and redesign the bridge to be larger, because wasn't that the point of it?
The bridge currently, it's nearly constructed today.
Right.
4 lanes, wide sidewalks. And it stops at North Winds. So that's the clear stopping point. So if you want to widen Kimball Bridge Road west, you'd have to make adjustments to the structures.
To these structures only, or to other structures? Remind me of how that went.
If you would do a very reduced section, meaning there wouldn't be a wider median, it would be maybe just like a 2-foot wide concrete median, 1-foot wide concrete median separating the lanes going east and west, and maybe a narrower sidewalk. But we didn't dive deep into the concept plan for that area because of the existing structures and the applicant that was coming in that was going to save them.
Yeah, and that's really my point, is that we don't have the study that says that we could go further west than, what's the road, West Side Parkway, or not West Side?
North Winds, from
North Winds. And so if we're just gaining another 2 feet of sidewalk versus an 8-foot sidewalk, I can't really support that.
I think you are gaining a wide side with their site plan. I think you do gain a wide sidewalk.
You do currently, right. But I mean, if it means that that's all we're gaining, and we don't know that the road can be widened for this hearing, then why move further on it? And why ask for the demolition of the other part of the building, is my point.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve as outlined in the friendly amendment, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. I'm still trying to decide. Some of them are easy and some of them are a little tougher, for various reasons. I mean, I think there's been a good point made as far as taking down the gym altogether is a big difference in what we originally approved. And the pinch point is something that concerns me, because that road and that building, if it's built like they're saying it's going to be built, will be there for a very long time. And it could constrain traffic and pedestrian movements for a long time if we don't get it right. But I will vote. And the motion does pass 4-2. Next item up on the agenda will be MP-24-01/CU-24-02, the Golf Sanctuary. Oh, my apologies. There is a note here that says this has been removed and the application has been withdrawn by the applicant and will not be heard or discussed during this meeting. So if you were here for that item, I apologize for not letting you know earlier. That'll wrap up the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. We have no new business that I'm aware of, so we'll move on to public comment. If there's anyone here that would like to say something and hasn't had the opportunity, now you do have a chance. Do we have any, Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not have any cards, but it looks like Mr. Buchanan would like to maybe speak.
Okay. You have 3 minutes, sir.
I remember.
And name and address.
Yep. Michael Buchanan, 135 Pebble Trail. Anyway, this is about something that's come up in the past. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I follow history, American, regional, and local, and when I learned several years ago about the farmhouse archaeological site, I was stunned that something of such importance still existed among the constantly scraped landscape of Alpharetta. Luckily for farmhouse, there was no viable way to make money off of its location, so it still survives. Relatively unchanged since the 1850s, farmhouse provides the rare opportunity for our community to see how far we've come in a couple of centuries. The citizens of Alpharetta earnestly voted for a bond referendum that would support new projects here, including the preservation, presentation, and proper access to the farmhouse site. So my one question is, why haven't any steps been installed or paths designed and informational plaques placed? If there's a parking problem, which seems to be one of the major problems, folks can walk from Avalon. People walk all over Alpharetta, and we are constantly encouraged to walk here. So if that's the case, then why is the project still on hold? Some on the council have suggested that the farmhouse funds be shifted away from their stated and intended purpose to finish other projects. To do so would bring into question whether or not voters could trust the council in some of these future referendums. I would think that's not a road elected officials would travel. If other projects are not finished, are not finished yet, we would like to know why and which ones, and if it's just cosmetic final touches, then perhaps this is not as pressing a move of funds as we thought. I don't have kids who play soccer, so should I question why our taxes are used for things I don't use and might not like? I don't ride horses. Should I complain about the funding of the equestrian center? The answer is an emphatic no. We are all in this together. We all know that if funding for farmhouse and the adherence to protocol sneaks down the hall, the project may and probably won't ever be completed. Those who never really wanted farmhouse in the first place hopefully understand that compromise works best in so many situations. Legacies are not only about what we do, but about what we don't do. The city very capably finds funds for so many of the things we dream about and want, and that's a wonderful thing that our city does. To keep the citizens' faith in what we all say, I think we should stick to what the referendum stated and look more closely at another way to fund the unfinished projects. I believe it is totally within the capabilities of this council to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Director Rogers, do you mind explaining why there's been no real progress in actually constructing anything on that site?
Good evening, Council. Be happy to answer that, Mr. Mayor. The hardest part of the farmhouse project is the access to the project. There is access off of Old Milton Parkway that we have access to, but to get steps down at least even to the first phase or the first level ground down there would take all the money that we have currently in the bond for a farmhouse. So we looked at the property that is behind the QT that was going to be a medical building before COVID that was taken off because that group had offered access, better access at a lower spot back there. And we have been in conversation with them. We've done a draft plan for that, which is much more economically as well as it's just not a set of steps. Because if you go off of Old Milton, you'd start on your first step would be a step, and you would be on steps until you got to the point. We don't think that was a very good way to do it. So we are currently working with that owner to try to develop a plan using their property. But the biggest problem with that is that particular property owner doesn't know what they're going to build. So it's hard for us to plan something when they're saying they'll give us access and would even give us parking, but they don't know what they're going to build. So we've kind of run both of those scenarios, and we're really waiting to hear back from the company as to what's feasible right now. So that's kind of where we're at with that project.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the public was aware of why that hasn't been constructed yet, because the obstacles are greater if we try to do it now, and the benefit is lesser if we try to do it now.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's anyone else that would like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. I believe we have reports. Do we have any reports this evening? Seeing none, we do need an executive session, I believe. Could I call for a motion to recess to executive session?
A motion to recess, Mr. Mayor, to executive session.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, a second by Councilman Mitchell.
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, if I could just say that the items are potential litigation and land acquisition, and for the public's benefit, there may be action of the City Council following the executive session.
Thank you very much, sir. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to recess, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. It does pass unanimously. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back shortly. Do we have a motion to reconvene?
Motion to reconvene.
We have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Will to reconvene into the council meeting. Do we have any public comment cards on that?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Seeing none coming forward, we'll close public comment. All those in favor of reconvening the city council meeting, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. We are reconvened. Now, do I have a motion to add an item to the agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to add the agreement for issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy between the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, and political subdivision of the State of Georgia, acting by through its governing authority, the Mayor City Council at 100 North Main Street, Alpharetta, LLC.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
Do we have a second? We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilman Mitchell. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on that item?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, now's your opportunity. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes, otherwise vote no. And it passes unanimously. We will add that item. Mr. Lagerbloom or
Mayor and Council, as you know, this agreement provides for a temporary certificate of occupancy for 100 North Main for up to 19,800 square feet of the building. This is specifically limited to retail and office uses and prohibits the occupancy of the building by any restaurant. It contemplates terms of 180 days, which can be renewed for good cause. As you know, the construction on Main Street with GDOT, it is unpredictable what the driveway access for the property would be. If GDOT is the source of the delay, if there's not been a driveway permit issued, and it is due to the delay by GDOT, then the term of the TCO for the building, again capped at 19,800 square feet, can automatically renew under the term of this agreement. But again, no restaurant space would be included in that.
any questions for our city attorney on this item? Thank you, Ms. Eswine. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
No, not for this, Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward and speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd offer a motion this evening to approve the agreement for issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy by and between the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, and political subdivision of the State of Georgia, acting by and through its governing authority, the Mayor and City Council, and 100 North Main Street, Alpharetta, LLC, a Georgia limited liability company.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Do we have a second? Have a second by Councilman Hypes. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, the motion outlined by Mayor Pro Tem, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Do we have any other discussion items? We do not?
We do not.
Do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
God bless you. We have a motion by Councilman Will. Do we have
That was a public comment.
Do we have a second for the motion to adjourn? Councilman Mitchell is the second. All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes. And it passes unanimously. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time.
Council, there is an affidavit coming your way. Perfect. And then Donald, I have